controversy stirs over a portrait of General Robert E. Lee.
Plus, sluggish food, what you're eating for breakfast, may make you tired in the afternoon.
Live from WUSA Broadcast House, Channel 9 Eyewitness News This Morning begins now.
And good morning, everyone. I'm Terry Okita.
I'm Gerald Owens. It's Friday, June 4th. Thank you for joining us.
1, 324, and 328 are all canceled. And for more information, stay with Channel 9. We'll bring you updates as the situation changes.
In other news, family, friends, and colleagues of a local firefighter will gather in his memory this morning. Funeral services will be held for fallen D.C. firefighter Anthony Phillips today. Phillips and fellow firefighter Lewis Matthews died while battling a townhouse blaze last Sunday. A viewing for Matthews is also scheduled today in Capitol Heights. A great number of district firefighters will be taking the day off to attend Phillips' funeral and the viewing for Matthews. We're told another firefighter injured in the blaze, Joe Morgan, is on the road to recovery. Anthony Phillips' funeral will take place at 10 o'clock this morning at the Bethesda New Life Gospel Church. That's in Northeast Washington. And Lewis Matthews' viewing will take place from 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock tonight at St. Paul Baptist Church in Capitol Heights. With so many district firefighters taking part in the funeral procession for Anthony Phillips, it's going to have an effect on this morning's traffic. Monica Samtani has more on what we can expect. Monica?
Well, as you said, the funeral is actually at 10 o'clock, and the funeral procession will begin before that, and you should expect delays because of that. We'll tell you all about that. Now, drivers should expect traffic delays this morning on and around Kenilworth Avenue Northeast. First of all, on Minnesota Avenue and Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast, Maryland Avenue Northeast, Florida Avenue Northeast, New York Avenue Northeast, and Bladensburg Road Northeast. They will end up at 750 Kenilworth Avenue, as you said, Gerald, Bethesda New Life Gospel Church in Northeast, and the funeral procession again will begin before that. I expect it to take about an hour or so, so we'll keep you posted on what you need to know about that as well. Terry, back to you.
All right, thanks, Monica. Firefighters consider themselves part of an extended family that goes well beyond any boundaries or jurisdictions. So crews from Prince George's, Montgomery, Arlington, and Fairfax counties are volunteering their services today while their D.C. brethren mourn the loss of 2 fallen firefighters. Volunteer firefighters at the Branchville Firehouse in College Park are ready to go. They'll be manning the firehouse in D.C.'s Shawn neighborhood while firefighters there attend funeral services for Anthony Phillips and Lewis Matthews.
It's important to lend the support, and it's a family, and that family transcends localities and jurisdictions.
Others in Prince George's County, as well as Montgomery and Fairfax counties, are offering their time on both Friday and Saturday. In total, 19 engines, 5 ladder trucks, 1 rescue squad, and a battalion chief and major will come from Prince George's County. Montgomery County will provide 5 engine companies, 3 ladder trucks, and 1 district chief. And Fairfax will send 3 fire engines and 1 battalion chief. Although operating procedures vary, streets are new, and equipment is slightly different, they say the methods of fire and rescue are the same.
Every apparatus is going to have somebody, 1 or 2 persons that are familiar with the District of Columbia and its layout.
Every once in a while we do have occasion to work together anyhow. I think it's an issue of fine-tuning as opposed to relearning.
These volunteer firefighters will not only be standing by in case of emergencies, they'll also be participating in the funeral services. As a show of support, they'll drive this antique pumper in the procession. This union is an unprecedented event in the district, and they say the most meaningful way to pay respects to the 2 fallen firefighters. The crews from the 4 bordering counties are meeting this morning at RFK Stadium to coordinate assignments.
If you use the rails as part of your morning commute, you might want to find another way in today.
And a time to say goodbye as friends, family, and fellow firefighters remember 2 heroes.
D.C. Police Chief Charles Ramsey put safety first and orders a controversial firing range to be remained closed. Good morning, Washington. Friday the 4th of June, 1999. I'm Horace Holmes.
And I'm Lauren Ashburn, in for Mary Jo Walsh. 34 this Friday morning. 1 of 2 firefighters who died in the line of duty will be laid to rest this morning. Meanwhile, it was an emotional scene yesterday morning as a line formed early for the viewing of Anthony Phillips. family, friends, and fellow firefighters from the district, as well as from across the country, lined up to pay their respects. Phillips and fellow firefighter Lewis Matthews were killed fighting a blaze at a Northeast D.C. townhouse on Sunday. Grieving firefighters poured in, realizing that it easily could have been one of them.
You know, we never ever get accustomed to the tragedies that we see and are a part of on a daily basis. And you know we never get accustomed to the tragic events that occurred on early Sunday morning.
The funeral for Anthony Phillips is this morning at 10 o'clock at New Bethesda Gospel Church in Northeast Washington. News 7 will have live coverage, and services for Lewis Matthews will take place at noon on Saturday, and that is at St. Paul's Baptist Church in Capitol Heights, Maryland.
Gorgeous forecast. It all starts right now on this very busy morning.
Live from WUSA Broadcast House, Channel 9 Eyewitness News this morning begins now.
Good morning. Welcome to Eyewitness News at 6. I'm Gerald Owens.
And I'm Terry Okita. It's 5:59, and Peggy Fox is on maternity leave. We miss her.
We're up to date on this story all throughout the day, as it will affect train riders all day long. Terry?
Our other major story of the day is, of course, a funeral for a hero. Anthony Phillips will be buried today. He's one of the 2 firefighters killed while battling a blaze in Northeast Washington last Sunday morning. Vic Segley worked with Anthony Phillips. He is with us live from Engine Company 10. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Can you tell us, as a friend and a fellow firefighter, how this loss has impacted you and the others at Engine Company 10, as well as the entire fire department?
Well, every day we go to work, and you never think this can happen. We're a very aggressive fire department and a very close fire department, and Tony was he was the best, and he was just a good person, not only in the fire department, but a good father, a good husband, and a good friend, and it's going to be hard not to see him every day.
Right. The funeral is planned for this morning at 10 o'clock. And there's going to be a procession as well. Do you know what's planned in that today?
Well, we got a pretty good route. We're going to be going throughout the city, around the Capitol, by the station here, Engine 10 and Truck 13, and then to the cemetery of the fallen firefighters where he'll be buried.
Right, and that's a new cemetery, or a new portion of the cemetery as well, from what I understand.
Right. It's called the Last Alarm Gardens, and he's going to be one of the first to be buried there.
Firefighters from all over the city and the counties, as well as across the eastern United States, and maybe even into Canada, are expected at this funeral procession. Is that common for so many firefighters to turn out for this?
Oh yeah, it's being a fireman is like no other job, along with the police department. It's a brotherhood that you feel pain. I don't care where a firefighter or a policeman dies. It's a brotherhood we share, and the love is just, no matter, even if you don't know the person's name, it doesn't matter. We will go anywhere for a funeral, and because we feel the pain of any department, and the brotherhood we have is like one big family, so it hurts all over everybody.
Well, firefighter Vic Segley, thank you for being with us this morning, and we mourn your loss as well.
Thank you very much.
This morning's funeral procession will go from the church in Northeast, past Engine Company 27 on Minnesota Avenue, and past Company 10 on Florida Avenue to Fort Lincoln Cemetery. Expect traffic delays around Kenilworth Avenue in Northeast, Minnesota Avenue and Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast, Maryland Avenue, New York Avenue, and Bladensburg Road Northeast.
Services for the other firefighter killed in that blaze, Lewis Matthews, will be held on Saturday. We also have encouraging news to report on firefighter Joe Morgan. He's still in the burn unit at the Washington Hospital Center, but his condition is said to be improving. Make sure you stay with Eyewitness News throughout the day for continuing coverage of this story. We'll have more live reports throughout the morning. We'll have complete coverage of the funeral procession and service live at noon. And then we'll wrap up the day's events at 4, 5, and 6.
Spirit is here.
You're watching NBC4, working for you. Live from the area's leading news station, this is News 4 Today.
very sad day as D.C. firefighters say a final farewell to one of their own. I'm Megan McGrath live at Engine Company number 10. I'll have the details coming up.
Funeral services will be held this morning for Anthony Phillips, one of the D.C. firefighters who died after a row house fire last weekend.
News 4's Megan McGrath has a live report this morning from Phillips' home base, Engine Company 10 in Northeast Washington. Good morning, Megan.
Good morning. As you would imagine, the mood here at Engine Company number 10 is very sad and very solemn. You can see behind me there are a number of vehicles out there. They're actually washing them down, making sure that everything is as clean and presentable as possible for today's procession. Now, Anthony Phillips worked here at Engine Company 10 for the last 4 years, and the men and women who fought fires beside him were more than just co-workers or colleagues. They were like a family, and Phillips' death has hit everybody very hard. The death of Anthony Phillips has hit the firefighting community hard. The horrible incident is a reminder of just how dangerous the job can be. Yesterday, a wake was held at the Bethesda New Life Gospel Church in Northeast. Some of the firefighters knew and worked with Phillips. Others did not, but they knew the job he did.
It's rough on all of us. It's very sad it has happened, you know.
I seen Phillips earlier that day. And for, me to come to work that morning and find out that he was gone, it affected me.
Phillips and fellow firefighter Lewis Matthews died from injuries they received while fighting a residential fire in Northeast Washington last weekend. Phillips will be buried today. Members of the Kentland Volunteer Fire Department in Landover will fill in at the station so that everyone at Engine Company 10 can attend the funeral. The volunteers gathered their equipment yesterday and were briefed on their fill-in role. They will answer all the calls that come in today, and that's no small job. Engine Company 10 is the busiest firehouse in the country, but members of the Kentland Department say it will be an honor to stand in. And you're looking at some pictures taken this morning of the engine that is going to carry Anthony Phillips' body during the procession. You can see that the engine has been wrapped with a black sash. This is the engine that he actually worked out of, and on the side, his nickname, Sauce, has been placed in letters. On the back here of the engine, you can see his rubber boots and his charred helmet. Now, the truck has been stripped of its hoses and things so that the coffin can actually be placed on the top. Again, during the procession, his body will be on the engine, and they will go through the city and actually pass the Engine Company on their way to the cemetery. Back to you.
All right. Thank you. Megan McGrath reporting live from Engine number 10.
And a reminder, News 4 will have live team coverage of today's final tribute to firefighter Phillips. We will be bringing you coverage of the funeral and a special report beginning at 1 o'clock this afternoon right here on News 4.
Saying goodbye to a fallen hero in just a few hours, D.C. firefighter Anthony Phillips will be laid to rest.
And if you depend on the train to get to work, you may have troubles with your commute this morning.
And Alice Rivlin steps down from the Federal Reserve to help the district. Good morning, Washington. 6:30, Horace and Lauren here. Mary Jo has the day off, long weekend for her on a Friday. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, and the other big story this morning, the funeral of fallen D.C. firefighter Anthony Phillips.
Services will be held at 10 o'clock this morning at the Bethesda New Life Gospel Church in Northeast, and that's where we find News 7's Drake Hill Burns this morning. Drake Hill.
Good morning. We are coming to you live from the Bethesda New Life Gospel Church here in Northeast D.C. because this is where at 10 o'clock this morning the funeral for firefighter Anthony Phillips is scheduled. In fact, since I've been out here this morning, I've seen a few firefighters roaming around known as the Honor Guard. Apparently, they've been here for much of the evening keeping vigil by the casket. And many began saying their goodbyes yesterday at the wake. Many heavy hearts, family, friends, and firefighters gathered at Bethesda New Life Gospel Church yesterday to grieve for firefighter Anthony Phillips.
We never ever get accustomed to the tragedies that we see and are a part of on a daily basis. And we never get accustomed to the tragic events that occurred on early Sunday morning.
It was on Sunday morning this past weekend when Phillips was fighting a fire in a Northeast townhouse. He died at the hospital. Phillips leaves behind a wife and 2 children and fellow firefighters who are trying to come to terms with what happened. Now, once again, Phillips' funeral is scheduled for 10 o'clock this morning, just hours from now here at the Bethesda New Life Gospel Church in the 700 block of Kenilworth Avenue in Northeast. There will be a large funeral procession, as you can imagine, and it will move on to Fort Lincoln Cemetery, where Phillips will be buried, so you can expect a lot of traffic delays in this area this morning. The other firefighter killed in that fire on Sunday, Lewis Matthews, he is scheduled to be buried on Saturday, tomorrow at noon. Back to you.
Okay, Drakil,
Thank you very much.
And News 7 will also have live coverage for that funeral.
Fox 5's Morning News starts now.
In just a few hours, family, friends, and firefighters from across the country will gather at the Bethesda New Life Gospel Church in Northeast, looking at a live picture. They're coming to pay tribute to D.C. firefighter Anthony Phillips, who died in the line of duty.
It is Friday, June 4th. Welcome to Fox Morning News. I'm Josh Binswanger.
And I'm Mark McCarthy. Good to have you with us. Turning now to our top story. A D.C. firefighter who died in the line of duty will be laid to rest today. Funeral services for Anthony Phillips will take place at the Bethesda New Life Gospel Church in Northeast. Fox 5's Holly Morris is at the church right now. She joins us with more on today's ceremony. Holly?
Lark, for the hundreds of people who will be coming to the funeral service today for firefighter Anthony Phillips, it is a question of how do you say goodbye? How do you say goodbye to a coworker, a friend, a husband? How do you say goodbye to your dad? Yesterday, friends and family had their first chance to say goodbye to firefighter Anthony Phillips during a public viewing that was held here at the church yesterday, also here at Bethesda New Life Gospel Church. There was a steady stream of people throughout the visitation. In fact, the outpouring of people and emotion was overwhelming, especially for many firefighters.
If you needed Tony work for you, any day was Sunday. Sunday, I got to go to church and be with my family.
You take the job as a firefighter, you know it's always in the back of your mind that it can happen.
Each of us and each of you know the inherent dangers that exist within firefighting. That in itself makes us strong as a family, and when I mean a family, I mean the fire service family.
This time, though, it happened to Anthony Phillips. He was stationed at Engine Company Number 10. Engine Company Number 10 is known as the House of Pain. That is because it is one of the busiest firehouses in the country. Phillips was known around the station as Sauce, and it was also very well known that he was an avid basketball player. He loved a good pickup game in and around the station when they weren't busy. When you talk about firefighters, you often hear them talk about the brotherhood. It is a very tight-knit group. They are there for each other when they are fighting fires, and they are there for each other in times of need, like the ones we are seeing now. In fact, the fire union has already given the Phillips family a $2,000 check to help cover funeral service expenses. They did the same for the Matthews family, firefighter Matthews, the other firefighter that was killed during that fire last Sunday. And fire companies from Fairfax County, Prince George's County, and Montgomery County, they're all going to be helping out in the district the next 2 days so that all of the D.C. firefighters can attend both funerals. Mark, back to you.
All right, thank you, Holly. And we have more now on firefighter Phillips. Those who worked with him say he loved his job. He was a 4-year veteran of the D.C. Fire Department. Phillips was 30 years old and married. In addition to his wife, Lisa, he leaves behind 2 sons, Anthony Jr., who is 6 years old, and Arzell, 21 months. One firefighter tells Fox 5 the boys may have lost one dad, but gained 1,500. Josh.
Lark, as Holly just told us a few moments ago, the Kentland Fire Department from Prince George's County will cover Company 10 while those firefighters attend today's funeral. In addition, firefighters from Prince George's, Montgomery, and Fairfax counties will help cover the rest of the city so that other D.C. firefighters can attend Phillips' funeral. At this hour, firefighters from around the region are preparing to join a procession in show of support for their fellow firefighter. Fox 5's Lauren Williams is live in Northeast with more. Good morning, Lauren.
Josh, good morning. We are still awaiting the show of the fire engines that are supposed to show up around the perimeter of this field. We're about a quarter mile or so away from the church where you just saw Holly Morris, Bethesda New Life Gospel Church. They are supposed to be arriving here to take place in a very large procession that will occur after the funeral. Now, here's a little information about that procession from the church. It will head down Kenilworth Avenue It will pass Engine 27 quarters. It will then go past the U.S. Capitol and eventually pass Engine 10 quarters on Florida Avenue before heading to Fort Lincoln Cemetery. Now, many of those who aren't going to be here today have shown their support by leaving condolence messages on a firehouse.com website for firefighters Phillips and Lewis Matthews, who will be buried on Saturday. He's the other fatal victim of Sunday's fire. Also, a strong showing of brotherhood and support for firefighter Joe Morgan. Now, he is in critical condition at Washington Hospital Center. He suffered burns over 60% of his body, and again is in critical condition. He also fought that blaze on Sunday. Now, 36-year-old Morgan is an 8-year veteran of the fire department. 4-year veteran Anthony Phillips to be laid to rest today. Josh, back to you.
All right, Lauren, thank you very much. Our Lauren Williams live in Northeast this morning. As she just informed you, the viewing for the second firefighter killed in the townhouse blaze will be held later today. Lewis Matthews' viewing will be at St. Paul Baptist Church in Capitol Heights from 4 this afternoon until 9 o'clock this evening. Funeral services will be conducted tomorrow, beginning at noon. Firefighter Joseph Morgan is also injured in that blaze, and he remains in critical condition this morning at Washington Hospital Center.
Live from WUSA Broadcast House, Channel 9 Eyewitness News this morning begins now.
And good morning to you. I'm Terry Okita. Peggy Fox is on maternity leave, probably changing some diapers right now.
Yes, she probably is. I'm Gerald Owens. It's Friday. It's June 4th. Thank you for joining us.
Well, today is the first of 2 D.C. firefighters killed in the line of duty early Sunday morning will be laid to rest. And services for firefighter Anthony Phillips will be held today. For Lewis Matthews, the services will be held tomorrow. Mark Sadowski joins us now. He's from Engine Company 10 in Northeast. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
We spoke with another one of your fellow firefighters. Can you tell us, in your words, how this loss has affected you, the people in Engine Company 10, as well as the entire fire department?
Well, just to the fire department, it's a great loss because Tony was an unbelievable guy. He made you want to come to work in the morning. Every day he was just always up. If you were down, he would bring you up. And he was just always talking about his family. Very religious. It's unbelievably sad. I don't know what else to say, really.
And the funeral procession that's going to be going on shortly really pays tribute to him, and a lot of people from across the country, even in Canada, are going to be at this procession today. What more can you say about that? And it must be a nice turnout to see all these people coming out for this funeral.
Well, the firefighting is a brotherhood, and really the other funerals that I've been to, the support is great, and even the community around us has provided a lot of support to us.
Well, we want to say that we mourn your loss with you and your fellow firefighters at Engine Company 10, as well as the entire D.C. Fire Department. Thank you very much for being with us this morning.
Okay, thank you.
Mark Sadowski from Engine Company 10. Today's funeral procession will go from the church in Northeast, past Engine Company 27 on Minnesota Avenue, and past Company 10 on Florida Avenue to Fort Lincoln Cemetery. Expect traffic delays, as we've said, around Kenilworth Avenue in Northeast, Minnesota Avenue and Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast, Maryland Avenue, New York Avenue, and Bladensburg Road Northeast.
Fox 5's Morning News starts now.
Josh, the other major story we're following today, the district paying tribute to a fallen hero this morning. D.C. firefighter Anthony Phillips will be buried less than 1 week after he died trying to put out a blaze in a Northeast townhouse. Fox 5's Holly Morris joins us live now from the Bethesda New Life Gospel Church in Northeast, where the funeral will take place. Holly?
Lark, you know, we know that firefighters put their lives on the line every day, but the risk and the sacrifice becomes all too real when a tragedy like this happens, and it's becoming very real here this morning. Just moments ago, this fire engine pulled up. This is the fire engine that firefighter Phillips was riding on that fateful night. As you can see, it is draped with the black funeral draping. This fire engine will be used to carry his casket His crew members will ride along, and his seat, the right rear seat, will be left empty for him to remember him and to honor him. His family will ride along behind in a limousine. In just a few minutes, they're going to be closing off that roadway there so more cars can line up. Chief Jim Martin is joining me this morning. Thank you for coming out here. I know that it's a very tough day for you. How are you doing?
We're hanging in there right now. We have done a lot of work in the last couple of days, but it's all coming together, and we're doing well.
The outpouring of people and emotion that was seen last night at the viewing is just pretty overwhelming to watch, and I know you were here. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, we had a memorial service for Tony last night, and it did evoke a lot of emotions, and truly the fire service is coming together to help us out, get the things going we need to get going, and
you know firsthand about the brotherhood of the fire department, but are even you amazed at the number of people and the number of firefighters that have come to remember him?
Oh, yes, ma'am. The outpouring of grief here is really well overwhelming. We have people coming from basically all around the country, up and down the East Coast. All the municipalities in the area will be here. It's unbelievable.
Any words of comfort?
Any words of comfort? No, ma'am, not right now. I don't think there are any at this moment, no.
There are no words of comfort. It's going to be a tough day for all the people that will be here. The funeral service starts at 10 o'clock this morning. Lark, back to you.
All right, thank you, Holly. We will check in with you later to talk more about the preparations and to give you information that you may need to know. Josh.
Lark, Anthony Phillips' colleague, the second victim of that deadly townhouse fire, will also be buried this weekend. 29-year-old Lewis Matthews was a 7-year veteran of the D.C. Fire Department and the father of a 2-year-old son. He was badly burned in Sunday's fire and died 1 day later at Washington Hospital Center. A public viewing for Matthews will be held today at St. Paul Baptist Church in Capitol Heights from 4 this afternoon until 9 o'clock tonight. His funeral services will be conducted tomorrow at noon.
It is 7:42 now on this Friday morning. It's been 5 months since Marion Barry finished his term as mayor. He'll tell us how he thinks the district is faring when he joins us next in The Loop.
And now, In the Loop with Lark McCarthy.
He's been out of office for 5 months now, but former Mayor Marion Barry is keeping busy. Last week, Barry was part of a delegation attending the inauguration of the new Nigerian president. What else has he been doing? Joining us now, Marion Barry.
Good morning, Lark.
Great to see you.
I kind of miss our early morning.
Our encounters, right, so do I. Yeah, great to have you here. Right. Let's deal with, obviously, it's a very tough day for the city. It's a day of mourning for so many people. Talk about, losing a firefighter in the line of duty and what this says for all of us here who live in this area.
My prayers and sympathy and condolences goes out to the family of Mr. Phillips and Mr. Matthews. It just demonstrates that firefighting is a dangerous job and that we ought to support our firefighters a lot more than we do. People sometimes think that police officers are the most dangerous jobs, but both of these jobs
are
very dangerous. You never know where you're going to end up at the end of the day. I'm going to attend the funeral this morning, Mr. Phillips, and go by the viewing of Mr. Matthews. But
yes, we should all remember,
we got some good firefighters.
That those are, well, they put their lives on the line
every
as well,
day.
And we all need to remember that.
We love them.
All right.
A D.C. firefighter who died in the line of duty will be laid to rest later today. Funeral services for Anthony Phillips will take place at Bethesda New Life Gospel Church in Northeast. Fox 5's Holly Morris is at the church this morning. She joins us live with more on today's ceremony. Holly?
Josh, firefighter Anthony Phillips gave his life serving others. That's why it's called the ultimate sacrifice. And when we lose somebody that is so gracious, that's why it's so hard to say goodbye and even harder to understand. Last night, there was a public viewing held here at the church. Friends and family and co-workers paying their last respects and providing support for each other during this time of need. The support among firefighters really is amazing, and that will be evident today by the processional. Here is the route that the processional will take. From the church here, they will go north on Kenilworth and eventually go past Engine 27 station on Minnesota. They will then make their way to the Capitol and eventually will pass Engine 10's quarters on Florida Avenue. They will then wind up at Fort Lincoln Cemetery. And of course, leading that procession will be Engine number 10's.
Obviously some technical difficulties there. We'll get back out to Holly Morris later on this morning at the church where the service will be held. We do want to let you know that a memorial fund has been set up for Anthony Phillips' family. That fund is being handled by Nations Bank. The account number on your screen, not necessary to write down all of those numbers. If you go to an area bank and ask to make a contribution to that fund, they will assist you in that particular process. A separate memorial fund has been set up for Phillips' co-worker, Lewis Matthews, the second D.C. firefighter to die in Sunday's townhouse blaze. Those contributions can be sent to Crest Star Bank at 1445 New York Avenue Northwest, Washington, D.C., the zip code 20005. The account number for Matthews Memorial Fund also on your screen, 860-268-640. Lark.
Josh, as we reported, firefighter Anthony Phillips worked at Engine Company 10 in Northeast. It's a somber mood there today as firefighters prepare to say goodbye. Fox 5's Laura Evans is live at Engine Company 10. Good morning, Laura.
Good morning, Lark. The firefighters here at Engine Company 10 just left a few moments ago. They took a picture. They were in full uniform just about 5 minutes ago right outside of Engine Company 10. It's a very heavy, solemn, sad day here for the firefighters, as I'm sure you can imagine. Anthony Phillips served here with Engine Company 10 for 4 years. There's a memorial outside the station. You can see a picture there of Anthony Phillips, some flowers, balloons, and a flag that's flying at half-staff. There are firefighters coming from Prince George's County to fill in for the firefighters who will be at the funeral here. They're going to Fort Lincoln Cemetery after the funeral, and the procession will be going by the station, Lark, as you said. Now, Engine Company 10 is known as the House of Pain because it's really one of the busiest fire stations in the country, but today it's a different kind of pain. A lot of sadness here, Lark. Back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Laura. She's at Engine Company 10 in Northeast. Later this hour, we'll have a live report on today's procession that will be joined by firefighters from around the region. Josh? For many, it is a day of mourning. Firefighters from around the region are gathering to say goodbye to firefighter Anthony Phillips. The funeral for Phillips, one of 2 D.C. firefighters killed in a townhouse fire, will be held this morning. Fox 5's Lauren Williams is live in Northeast with more. Lauren.
Good morning, Lark. We are about a quarter of a mile away from the church where the funeral is going to be held this morning. I just want to show you all of the fire trucks lining up out here right now around the perimeter of this area. They're lining up for a major procession that's going to take place following the funeral. We're told about 150, maybe 200 or so fire engines are going to be lining up around here this morning to get ready to head out into the procession, going out into the cemetery. Now, I want to introduce you right now to Jim Talbot, who's the captain with the D.C. Fire Department. You kind of coordinated this effort. Just tell me, why is something like this, something so major like this, so important?
Well, as has probably been overstated by now, the fire service is a great brotherhood. We all realize that on any given day, something unfortunate like this could happen to one of us, and we'd like to pull together. We don't normally dwell on it, but we do think about it at situations like this and try to pull together and support each other and display our empathy and sympathy for all those concerned.
Now, how far away are you expecting firefighters to come from for the funeral today or for the procession today?
Every unit in the D.C. Fire and EMS Department will be here, plus we're expecting anywhere from 150 to 200 units from all the surrounding jurisdictions, probably in a 50-mile radius or greater.
Or maybe there may be somebody from Pennsylvania, maybe that far away.
Definite possibility. We've had telephone calls from all over the United States and Canada, Alaska. The fire service is a great brotherhood and knows no boundaries.
Obviously so. Thank you so much, Captain. A strong show of support. Now, we want to tell you about that funeral procession that will be leaving the church, heading north on Kenilworth Avenue Northeast. It will ride past Engine 27's quarters on Minnesota Avenue, will pass the U.S. Capitol before passing Engine 10's quarters on Florida Avenue. That is, of course, the firehouse where Anthony Phillips worked out of, and ultimately on to the Fort Lincoln Cemetery, where Phillips will be be buried later on this morning. Now, only family and friends will be allowed into that burial. The rest of the folks will be heading on to the Washington Convention Center for a reception. We do want to mention to you this morning that firefighter Joseph Morgan, who remains in critical condition in the hospital this morning, he also fought the blaze that claimed the lives of the 2 firefighters. He remains in critical condition with 60% burns over 60% of his body, so the support and prayers also continue to go out for him and his family this morning as well. Back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you so much, Lauren. And we do have more now on the viewing for the second firefighter killed in the townhouse fire. That will be held later today. Lewis Matthews' viewing will be at the St. Paul Baptist Church in Capitol Heights from 4 this afternoon until 9 tonight. Funeral services will be held tomorrow for firefighter Lewis Matthews.
The deaths of Anthony Phillips and Lewis Matthews are helping to push for the improvement of equipment and increase the training for fire and emergency medical workers. D.C. Council member Sharon Ambrose is calling for a cross-training program to be added to the Budget Support Act. That act will receive its second reading next week. Fire Chief Donald Edwards has said in the past that a program like that would be costly. Ambrose says it would be more cost-effective in the long run. Laura? Welcome back to Fox Morning News. The district will pay tribute to a fallen hero today. D.C. firefighter Anthony Phillips will be buried less than 1 week after he died while trying to put out a blaze in a Northeast townhouse. Fox 5's Holly Morris joins us now from Bethesda New Life Gospel Church in Northeast, where the funeral will take place. Holly?
Josh, it's been almost 90 years since the D.C. Fire Department lost 2 firefighters in a single fire. Over the next 2 days, they will be laying to rest 2 of their comrades. Today, it is firefighter Anthony Phillips. As you can see behind me here at the church, people are already starting to gather for the service that will start at 10 a.m. this morning. Anthony Phillips was 30 years old. He was a dedicated husband, a father of 2 young boys. There is an organization called Heroes. It is an organization for kids of fallen officers and firefighters. It will guarantee the education of the 2 boys through college, and in fact, the Phillips family has already been given a check of $5,000. You're looking right now at a live picture of inside the church. As you can see, they are preparing the church for the ceremony. There are a lot of flowers, a lot of wreaths already on the altar. The casket is inside the church. Once the service and the ceremony is over, then the casket will be brought out here. You can see there's traffic on this street, but once these buses pass by, and there are some other fire trucks down the way that will be a part of the processional, once they pass by, then the engine that is sitting out there, it is draped with a black ribbon around it. That is the engine that firefighter Phillips was riding in on that fateful night. It will carry his casket. His crew members will ride along with him. I think the street's been cleared now. We can give you a better shot of the engine there. His seat, though, the right rear seat, will be left open in memory of him. The family then will ride along behind, followed by the processional, which will go all the way to Fort Lincoln Cemetery, where Phillips will be the first to be buried in a new memorial garden called the Last Alarm Garden. And also, by the way, the Fort Lincoln Cemetery is paying for the burial service that will be going on this morning and into the afternoon. And on one last note, once a firefighter, always a firefighter. Firefighter Anthony Phillips has received a new badge. He received the department's new Millennium Badge that has been placed on him, and he will be buried in that today. Back to you.
All right, Holly, thank you very much. Our Holly Morris live from Bethesda New Life Gospel Church in Northeast. Once again, that service will commence at 10 o'clock this morning. Clark?
Those who worked with Phillips say he loved his job. He was a 4-year veteran of the D.C. Fire Department. Phillips was 30 years old and married. In addition to his wife, Lisa, he leaves behind 2 sons, Anthony Jr., who is 6 years old, and Arzell, who's 21 months. One firefighter tells Fox 5 the boys have lost one dad, but they gained 1,500. Josh?
The funeral procession for Anthony Phillips will pass through all 4 quadrants of the city. Here is a look at the funeral route. It will start at the Bethesda New Life Gospel Church. The procession will head north on Kenilworth Avenue, then turn down Nannie Helen Burroughs Avenue. It will continue down Minnesota Avenue, passing by Engine Company 27's headquarters. Then go past the U.S. Capitol, around Stanton Square, and down Florida Avenue past Engine Company 10's headquarters. That was Phillips's company. It will then proceed to Fort Lincoln Cemetery on Bladensburg Road.
Josh, as you mentioned, firefighter Phillips was assigned to Engine Company 10 in Northeast. It will be a tough day for those who spent so many hours with him. Fox 5's Laura Evans joins us now live from Engine Company 10. Laura?
Lark, a very tough day for many of these firefighters here. Just a short while ago, about an hour ago, the firefighters were in full uniform. They took a picture outside, and then they headed to the funeral, which starts at 10 o'clock this morning, as Holly said. Many of the wives of the firefighters are still standing outside of Engine Company 10, waiting to leave for the funeral. Anthony Phillips served here with Engine Company 10 for 4 years. He was very, very well liked. There's a makeshift memorial outside of the firehouse. You can see balloons and flowers and a flag that's flying at half-staff. There's also a black ribbon. You often see this when a man in public service or woman in public service has fallen in the line of duty. A black ribbon over a badge, a black ribbon over a sign. You can see there, I don't know, there's a truck in front of it, but there is a black ribbon over the sign that says Saving Lives, Engine Company 10. Now, as I said 1 hour ago that the firefighters left, so this engine company will not be filled with the regular firefighters who work here, but rather there will be firefighters coming in from Prince George's County, from Kentland Fire Company to be exact. And joining me now is Richard Riley. He is the chief of the Kentland Fire Engine Station. Thank you for being with us today. I know this is a hard day even for you as a firefighter.
Yeah, it is. It tears you up inside when a brother dies like that, and we're just here today so all the members from Engine 10 and Truck 13 can be with the families and be at the church, and they don't have to worry about covering their district.
What's the procedure today, not just at Engine Company 10, but all over the city?
All the jurisdictions that surround D.C. have sent units in to cover all the fire stations, so all the companies can go down to the church and pay homage to Firefighter Phillips. And we're just here to serve the citizens of D.C. so those guys can go be with Mr. Phillips.
Mm-hmm. This is sort of an unspoken rule among police and sheriff's deputies and fire stations as well that you cover.
When a firefighter dies, firefighters from all around do anything that fire department asks. And it's just the way it is. If they want us to do from cook dinner, wash dishes, to fill the fire stations, we're going to do it so they can be with their brother.
Very good. All right, Richard Riley, thanks for joining me. And Lark, as you said, the procession from the funeral to Fort Lincoln Cemetery will come down here Florida Avenue, pass by Engine Company 10, where firefighter Anthony Phillips served for 4 years. Back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Laura. We will have coverage of the funeral and the procession for Anthony Phillips today on Fox 5's Noon News.
You're watching NBC4, working for you. Live from the area's leading news station, this is News 4 at 9.
Well, people are starting to gather now at the Bethesda New Life Baptist Church in Northeast Washington, where funeral services will be held later for firefighter Anthony Phillips.
He was one of the 2 firefighters who died fighting a blaze Sunday in Northeast. News 4's Pat Collins begins our coverage this morning. He joins us now live from the church. Good morning, Pat.
Good morning, Debbie. Good morning, Joe. This is the saddest of days for D.C. firefighters. This is the saddest of days for people in the city of Washington. We're at the Bethesda New Life Gospel Church here on Kenilworth Avenue. As you can see, mourners beginning to gather to pay their respects to Anthony Phillips, a 30-year-old firefighter, one of 2 firefighters to be killed in that blaze over the weekend in Fort Lincoln. It has been 88 years since 2 firefighters in the city of Washington were killed in the same incident. We expect thousands of firefighters here today, firefighters from Toronto, New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles, expected to attend memorial services here. In the front of the church, you will see Engine 10. This is the truck that will carry the coffin of firefighter Phillips. This is the truck that he rode on. This is from Engine 10, where he was stationed for 4 years. The busiest fire engine company in the country. We expect a number of speakers, including Congressman Steny Hoyer, the mayor, Linda Kropp from the City Council, the fire chief, and others in a ceremony that is expected to go on well beyond 2 hours. Joining me now, Father Sal Criscola. Father Sal is a police and fire chaplain. He's been that for many years. Father, first, what do you tell the other firefighters today?
Pat, it's not so much telling, it's just listening to them, being there to support them. I think every firefighter in the city, every firefighter who has that calling realizes this could happen at any time. There's no such thing as a routine fire. And that's what I heard someone say the other day, was a routine fire. There isn't a routine fire. Every fire is a dangerous situation.
And for the city, is there anything we can learn from this?
I think the city needs to realize, and I'm sure they do, that, you know, these are men and women who come from families, have, you know, families of their own, and they put their lives on the line every day. We see them racing up and down the streets when the 911 call comes in, and we just don't even think twice about if they're going to come back or not. And it's something that I think everyone in the city should realize, the danger of the job, the calling of the job, and that these men and women are called every day to put their lives on the line.
This is the most trying day for the family of the fallen firefighter. What can you tell them? What can you tell them to comfort them?
When I received the page early Sunday morning, I had to go out and make a notification, you know, to the family. Naturally, they were shocked and stunned and in denial. But after speaking to Lisa, his wife, and then meeting his mother, I realized the great faith and the strong faith that they have. And that's what they're dependent on right now. Their faith in God and the faith and the support of their fellow firefighters that they have received. It is a difficult, difficult time, as anyone who has lost a loved one knows. And she'll receive the support from the fire department as well as from the city. And she has to move forward. She has 2 children. And she realizes for the sake of the children, she has to keep moving forward. And every step she takes her husband with her.
Thank you very much. Father Sal Criscola, he's the police and fire chaplain. He's here for the services today. Again, we expect thousands of firefighters and mourners here at the Bethesda New Life Gospel Church here on Kenilworth Road, paying their respects to Anthony Phillips, the fallen firefighter. We will be here. We will have live reports and bring them to you as the developments occur here on Kenilworth Avenue. Debbie and Joe.
Pat, thank you very much.
Right.
And,
thank you, Pat. Well, Anthony Phillips worked out of Engine Company 10 in Northeast Washington, where his colleagues are mourning his loss.
and right now, News 4's Megan McGrathy is there, and she joins us live now. Good morning, Megan.
Good morning. Members of Engine Company number 10 gathered here at the firehouse this morning, and they left a short time ago together in a large group bound for the church. As you would imagine, this is a very sad day. The mood here is extremely somber. Now, earlier this morning, Engine 10 left the firehouse bound for the funeral home. That truck is going to carry Anthony Phillips to his final resting place. Led by a police escort, engine number 10, Anthony Phillips' truck, left the fire station. The engine has been stripped of its hoses and equipment, and after the funeral service, Phillips' casket will be placed on the truck, then driven through the city, past Company 10, then to Fort Lincoln Cemetery. The death of Anthony Phillips has struck at the heart of this firehouse, and today is indeed a difficult day.
The hardest part is, for me, is I have 2 children, and to go to some of these functions, to see the Phillips family and to see their 2 children, and to know that they have to go on without their father. But I hope they know someday what a hero their daddy was.
Since Phillips' death, his colleagues have done their best to keep busy and focused, but it's been tough.
Well, he was my relief in the morning, so I'll just, I mean, it's going to be hard. Some days I'm going to still be looking for his face in the morning. And
it's just one of those things you just never expect it. You know, it comes with the job, but I mean, you just never expect it to happen. Once it does, it's, you know, what we can do is support one another.
Phillips is survived by his 2 children and his wife, and it's her strength that has helped many deal with their grief.
Staying busy right now is, I think, the thing right now in getting everything done, so we send him off the correct way and make it easy on his family. I mean, his wife's been extremely strong, and I think that's how a lot of the guys have pulled together, is just through her strength.
And members of the Kentland Volunteer Fire Department from Prince George's County are here at the station. They're going to be manning the station all day long. In fact, just a second ago while we were in tape, they actually went out on a call. So they'll be here all day long to allow all of the members of Engine Company number 10 to attend the funeral. Back to you.
Okay. So just to elaborate on that just a bit, Megan, thanks very much. This continues as a sign of unity among all those who risk their lives on a daily basis. A volunteer fire department from Prince George's County, as Megan mentioned, plans to fill in for Phillips' colleagues there at Engine Company 10. So someone will be on duty to answer calls during his funeral. Members of the Kentland Volunteer Fire Department gathered their gear last night and got a briefing to help them get ready. Engine Company 10 is the busiest firehouse in the country. But the Kentland Volunteer Fire Department is one of the busiest volunteer companies in the nation, so it should be ready. Members of the Kentland Department say that it will be an honor to fill in and help out their fellow firefighters.
Well, farewells for firefighter Lewis Matthews will also begin today. He died of injuries suffered in that fire on Sunday as well. A viewing for firefighter Matthews will be held today from 4 in the afternoon until 9 tonight at St. Paul Baptist Church at 6611 Walker Mill Road in Capitol Heights, Maryland. Matthews' funeral will be held at noon tomorrow, also at St. Paul Baptist Church.
Moving on.
We are going to go back now to Bethesda New Life Baptist Church in Northeast Washington, where funeral services for firefighter Anthony Phillips will soon begin.
And News 4's Pat Collins is standing by there. Good morning, Pat.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Debbie. This will be a funeral with the highest of honors. If you can look over my shoulder, you can see the honor guards beginning to assemble out in front of the Bethesda New Life Gospel Church here on Kenilworth Avenue. A steady stream now of firefighters in uniform, many of them coming in their own apparatus here to the church to assemble to honor Anthony Phillips, the 30-year-old firefighter, one of 2 firefighters killed in that townhouse blaze last weekend in Fort Lincoln. It was back in 1911 that 2 D.C. firefighters were killed in the same incident. That's how long it's been since something like this happened, 88 years. There'll be a memorial service here. It will go on for some time, followed by a procession that will last a long time, carrying the coffin of firefighter Phillips, Engine 10. This is the truck that he worked off of for 4 years at the busiest fire company in the country. This is the truck that will carry him to Fort Lincoln Cemetery for the interment. Joining me now is Bill Mold. He's with the fire department. Bill, can you tell us about the ceremony at the church today?
The ceremony is going to begin at 10 o'clock. It's going to be a normal funeral. We're expecting over 1,000 firefighters from across the mid-Atlantic states, along with their apparatus. We've got 4 or 5 speakers, including Congresswoman Norton, Steny Hoyer, the mayor, and the fire chief. And then once it leaves here, a procession throughout the city, down in front of the Capitol, around and in front of firefighter Phillips' station, down New York Avenue and out Blainsburg Road to Fort Lincoln Cemetery.
How many pieces of equipment do you expect to be in that procession?
Well, they're going to perform 2 functions, actually. They're going to be blocking the intersection, some of them throughout the city. Once the procession passes that particular intersection, they will fall in the procession. About 200 pieces of fire equipment will be out on the streets.
It'll be an impressive sight, no doubt.
Very impressive sight, and a tribute to firefighter Phillips.
You've been on this fire department a long time, Bill. Your thoughts today about what happened and what's going to happen?
Well, yeah, I have been here a long time, and and I've been through several of these situations. This is extra special tragic because we lost 2 firefighters here, and it's the first time since 1911. And just when we think we're doing everything right in terms of training, something like this happens, and we really can't put a finger on why it happened. So it's very troublesome, and the firefighters throughout the city are, you know, they're mourning, yet they're continuing to do their job.
You have a tendency, don't you, to say, you know, that could have been me?
Well, I think that's one way to look at it, a tendency that it could have been me, and I think firefighters have a natural tendency to rush into burning buildings and take the approach the same as you and I have when we're driving down the road. We'll never be involved in that accident, and this is just an incident where I like to think that it's the same as being sucker punched. You know, somebody sneaks up behind you and whacks you and you're down, and that's what I think happened here. You never know when it's coming.
Thank you very much. Bill Mould with the D.C. Fire Department. High funeral services today for the fallen firefighter, Anthony Phillips. He was just 30 years old. He was married and the father of 2 little children. We'll be here covering the events, bringing them to you live. Now back to you, Joe and Debbie.
Pat Collins, thanks very much.
Thank you, Pat.
And News 4's Megan McGrath has spent this morning with colleagues of firefighter Anthony Phillips who work at Engine Company 10 in Northeast Washington.
And she joins us now live with an update. Megan?
Good morning. It is a very difficult time, as you can imagine, and the people that worked with Anthony Phillips are just trying to support one another and get through this today and be strong for his family and for each other. Now, a fire station is a very unique working environment. The men and women who work out of a fire station, they work very closely together in 24-hour shifts, sometimes in 36-hour shifts, and they really get to know each other in a very deep way. In fact, the relationship in some instances has been described as that of a family. Now, when Anthony Phillips died, Engine Company number 10 lost a member of its family, and it has been very, very difficult. Here at the fire station, there is a memorial out front. There is a picture of Phillips. His boots are laying in the grass, and there are a number of flowers and notes and messages that have been left there. We spoke to a number of his colleagues, a number of his friends here at the fire station. They were very upset, but the one thing that they did want people to know is what a wonderful person he was.
He's a real person. Yeah, I mean, this was the kind of guy that made everybody feel comfortable. And so everybody at the house, I mean, really, you know, had a real tight bond with him. It's a great father. So it's going to be really missed.
And everyone from Engine Company number 10, of course, is at the funeral today. So while they are gone, the Kentland Volunteer Fire Department for Prince George's County is here filling in and going out on the calls. And that's not something that's just happening here at this station. It's happening across the city. The video that you're looking at is a number of different engines from different jurisdictions all around the area. They're coming to fill in for those firefighters who are going to go and attend the services today. They actually rendezvoused in the parking lot of RFK Stadium this morning. They brought their own equipment, their own trucks. They were then coordinated and assigned to various stations around the city so that they can help out, because thousands of firefighters are expected to attend the services today. And of course, this is a unique job. Even though there has been a tragedy and a person has been lost and everybody is sad, the job must go on, and someone needs to be at the stations to perform the job. And if it's not the DC firefighters, they had to make other arrangements. And fortunately, other stations around the area came to the call and volunteered to help out in this very difficult situation. Back to you.
Indeed. Thanks. A remarkable community. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Megan. Firefighter Joseph Morgan was critically injured in the same fire that killed Anthony Phillips and fellow firefighter Lewis Matthews. D.C. Fire Chief Donald Edwards says Morgan is doing better, but still has a long way to go. Edwards says he saw Morgan Wednesday at Washington Hospital Center and that Morgan was able to sit up and move his arms and legs. The chief says Morgan has shown an enormous amount of strength. 9:45 right now, just 15 minutes before the funeral service will begin for Anthony Phillips, firefighter Anthony Phillips. There we see his family, his wife, leading the way into the church. They have been gathering all morning long to pay tribute to this fallen hero who will be laid to rest today. Bethesda New Life Gospel Church is the scene of the services for this morning.
Now, this funeral reminds everyone, I think, about just how dangerous the daily life of a firefighter is. This was an seemingly absolutely ordinary, routine kind of fire that they were fighting, a one-alarm fire inside a townhouse, the kind of fire that firefighters face every single day. That is the wife and child of Anthony Phillips waiting to go into the church, the salute from the honor guard as they proceed in. And yet in this fire, 2 firefighters killed because of a sudden flame over, or flashover as they called it. The other firefighter, Lewis Matthews, will be buried tomorrow. But this ceremony today is for firefighter Anthony Phillips. The funeral service is set to begin in about 14 minutes from now, followed by interment at Fort Lincoln Cemetery in Bladensburg.
All right, we will keep you updated on that.
We certainly will. We'll have a live report coming up at 1 o'clock this afternoon. 7 minutes till 10 o'clock this morning, 65 degrees here in Washington. We're looking at the inside of the Bethesda New Life Gospel Church in Northeast Washington, where in just moments the funeral services will begin for deceased firefighter Anthony Phillips, who was killed during a fire in Northeast Washington last weekend.
He was one of 2 firefighters who lost his life in that fire last Sunday of a townhouse in Northeast. And the other firefighter, he will be remembered today as well, and his funeral will be tomorrow.
That's right. Pat Collins is at the church at Bethesda New Life Gospel Church right now. Pat, what's the latest?
Well, Joe and Debbie, I am standing in the middle of a sea of firefighters. The Bethesda New Life Gospel Church only seats about 350 people. That is packed, as you might imagine, and there are hundreds and hundreds of firefighters outside standing in formation here. They will hear the service on loudspeakers that have been brought outside. There are firefighters here from as far away as Toronto, Chicago, up in New York. They expect a procession of at least 200 vehicles following the service. The service is expected to go on for about 2 hours. Congressman Hoyer is going to speak. Congressman Norton is going to speak. The mayor will talk, the fire chief. It should go on for some time. It's a service with high honors for Anthony Phillips, the firefighter who was killed tragically in a townhouse fire in Fort Lincoln over the weekend, one of 2 firefighters killed in that incident. And following the service, the casket bearing his body will be brought out here to Engine 10. This is the engine that he worked off of. This is the engine that took him to that fire last weekend. This is his helmet, and these are the boots that he was wearing when it happened. Again, a funeral with high honors today for Anthony Phillips, the fallen firefighter. We'll be here to cover that funeral for you. We'll bring you live reports of the funeral, the procession, and the internment, and we'll be back with reports as the developments progress from here. Again, a very sad day for all the firefighters in the city of Washington. A very sad day for the people of Washington as well. Now back to you.
Pat, thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat. It's Jerry.
And we will be following our top story today, of course, the final honors for firefighter Anthony Phillips. News 4 will have a special report beginning at 1 o'clock this afternoon, during which we will bring you the funeral service, which is going to begin in just a few moments, as well as the procession to the graveside. A procession, as Pat Collins just told us, is likely to be made up of several hundred vehicles, fire apparatus from as far away as Canada and Chicago, as Pat Collins mentioned. Family and friends will also begin today to say their farewells to firefighter Lewis Matthews. He, too, along with Anthony Phillips, the both of them were killed during a fire last weekend, a routine, ordinary fire, killed when a flashover occurred, and both of them were burned. We'll bring you the events honoring these 2 men today.
And that's News 4 at 9 for today. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to tune in to News 4 at 4, 5, and 6 later today for all this day's news.
And Debbie and I.J. Hudson will be back on Saturday for News 4 Today. Join us then. Have a good day.
Take care, everyone.
That I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life.
We interrupt this program for a special report from News 7.
Good morning, I'm Del Walters in the Channel 7 studios. A solemn day in the nation's capital as friends, family, and fellow firefighters gather in Northeast Washington to say goodbye to one of their fallen comrades. Firefighter Anthony Phillips, 36 years old, of Engine Company 10, is being laid to rest today. He died Sunday from his wounds battling a blaze in Northeast Washington, D.C. One of his colleagues, Lewis Matthews, of Engine Company 26, died days later. He is 29 years old. And another firefighter, Joseph Morgan, is still hospitalized with burns over 60% of his body, although firefighters tell us this morning that firefighter Morgan had a restful night last night, and that is perhaps the best news that we've heard in some days. Now, the funeral services began just a few moments ago. We're going to go live now to New Bethesda Gospel Church on Kenilworth Avenue. I can tell you that the services began poignantly with a recital of the 23rd Psalm. Let's listen in for a moment. You're looking right now at the scene at the New Bethesda New Life Gospel Church on Kenilworth Avenue. Gathered in the funeral home right now on the right side of the church are several of the firefighters who served alongside firefighter Anthony Phillips. We go now live to News 7's Carol Costello, who is standing by at Engine Company 10. That is where firefighter Phillips fought many of the blazes. It has an odd nickname, doesn't it, Carol?
It sure does. It's a sad, sad day here at Engine House number 10. It's called the House of Pain because it's the busiest firehouse in the nation. There's a memorial set up right in front of Engine House number 10, wreaths, and also Anthony Phillips' boots. Picture of him, too. All day long, neighbors have been coming by expressing their condolences. Now, Anthony Phillips' co-workers were able to attend the funeral because firefighters from around the region volunteered to work today. Christopher Turner from Engine House 27 is one of those. Thanks for joining us today. You said that you thought this was going to be the hardest day for the family. Why?
Well, more than likely that the family actually has to say goodbye today. They'll actually be burying their loved one, putting him in a better place, a place where he can now rest, you know, as well as a place where they know that he'll be eternally safe from any dangers that might come to them, you know, as well as also that the fallen firefighters will always be watching over their families and watching over us as well.
Firefighters have really drawn together through all of this. In fact, many of you volunteered to work here today. Why was it so important to do that?
Well, a lot of firefighters are actually on the shift today and are working. And a lot of us that got off last night or early this morning would have already attended the wake and the services. We paid our respects. We want to also give our other co-workers and fellow firefighters a chance to go in and actually view the body, pay the respects, be of support to the families and to the other firefighters of the members of Engine Company 10 as well, and everyone else that knew him.
Really nice of you. Does what happened to Anthony Phillips make you think twice about what you do every day?
Yes, very much, very much. It's makes me more aware of how fortunate I am that a lot of times, and it was on my other co-workers, that we can actually go home safely or come to work safely. A lot of times when we do come to work, a lot of us say silent prayers to ourselves, hoping that if this incident, something does occur, that our families and our other co-workers will not happen to them, and that our families will always be taken care of.
Anthony Phillips' body will come by this firehouse in a fire truck. Is that unusual?
No, it's not unusual. Actually, that is considered to be the last ride, and that is where they will basically be paying their respects in front of the company, paying their respects to the members, and as well as paying their respects on going on the last call.
Thank you very much. I'm going to let you get back to your job. Fire truck just pulled out a few moments ago, as a matter of fact. As I said, Anthony Phillips' body in a fire truck will be headed by here and also by Engine House 26. That's where Lewis Matthews worked. He's the other D.C. firefighter who died in that townhome fire. And then they'll go on to the cemetery. We will be covering this story all afternoon, so please stay with Channel 7. Back to you, Del.
And Carol, interesting to point out, as you mentioned, a fire truck pulled out a second ago. Even though the funeral was taking place right now, Engine 10 is still the busiest firehouse in the nation, and therefore work goes on.
life goes on.
Okay, thanks a lot, News 7's Carol Costello reporting live this afternoon from Northeast Washington, D.C. Once again, we're going to go back live now to New Bethesda Gospel Church on Kenilworth Avenue. That is where ceremonies have begun now. The funeral ceremonies for fallen firefighter Anthony Phillips are underway. We're going to be bringing you continuous coverage of the funeral services for firefighter Phillips, and also remind you of the condition of firefighter Joseph Morgan, who is still hospitalized at this hour with burns over 60% of his body. And also funeral services will be held tomorrow for firefighter Lewis Matthews of Engine Company 26, who died a few days after the fire that broke out in Northeast Washington last Sunday. It is a very, very somber day in the nation's capital, but it's also a day of celebration for firefighters as they remind the community with the last ride, which is the funeral procession of firefighter Phillips, as some 200 fire trucks will then make their way through the nation's capital, bright, shiny fire trucks, a reminder that we so often take our firefighters for granted, assuming that when they do go into a burning building to rescue us, they will come out alive. But as we can see this morning, that is not always the case, and we sometimes do take them for granted. So today, throughout the morning here on News 7, we will pay our tribute the way we do it to firefighter Phillips and firefighter Matthews by saying goodbye to them as well. We will be back as the developments warrant.
This has been a special report from News 7. We now rejoin our regularly scheduled programming already in progress.
Where it's all play all day. Buzz your cable company and get in the game.
We interrupt this program for a special report from News 7.
Good morning, I'm Del Walters in the Channel 7 studios. Throughout the morning, we have been monitoring the funeral of firefighter Anthony Phillips, who went down in the line of duty Sunday morning. We're going to go live now to the New Bethesda New Life Gospel Church in Kenilworth Avenue. That's where Mayor Anthony Williams is now speaking.
He lived in the house he was trying to save. He fought against that fire as if it were his own home, with his own wife and his own children trapped inside. He did what he had always done, and all of our firefighters do. They did their duty without hesitation, without fear, without thought of recognition. That's who he was, the quintessential firefighter, devoted to his community, his family, and to his God. In life, he represented everything that's good and honorable about public service. In his passing, he reminds us of the frailty of our own existence and the nobility of sacrifice for others. The firefighters of Engine Company 10 know who Anthony Phillips was. He was a hero, he was a father, he was a husband, he was an outstanding firefighter, and he was a friend. From the day the fresh young firefighter showed up for work sporting his engine jacket, they knew they had a joker on their hands. The jacket read, as I understand it, hot sauce. Now, apparently no one had ever bothered to tell Tony that the cardinal rule of nicknames is you're not allowed to pick your own nickname. So for the rest of the week, his name was mayonnaise, mustard, horseradish, ketchup, anything but hot sauce. But Anthony, who eventually settled for the name Sauce, didn't mind the teasing, and he learned to give as good as he got. He found his second home in Engine Company 10. He became a part of the family. He cared about his colleagues, and he shared his life with them. He even sang to them, even when they didn't want to hear it. And he loved sports. In particular, he loved the Dallas Cowboys, but nobody's perfect. You know, Tony once bragged to his friend that after he and some buddies had won a decisive victory in a basketball game, he said, we crushed them dudes, he told his friend, but somehow in telling the story, he left out the fact that he was opposed by 7th graders. But that was vintage Tony, always looking out on the bright side, never discouraged, never down, and never angry. He was one of those people who carry so much joy So much heart on his sleeve, it can't help but rub off on others. One of the recipients of that joy was a young man from the neighborhood named Jabbar. Jabbar had been coming around the fire station for years like many young kids, and when Tony met him, he took the young man under his wing. Tony was a role model and he was an understanding friend. He made an impact on Jabbar through the power of his caring and through the size of his heart. Tony's children who have lost their own father are going to need that same kind of love and support from all of us. Our community has a responsibility to these children, not only to be role models and friends in a time of need, but also to help them keep the memory of their father, keep the memory of their father alive. Anthony Jr. and Arzell, you always know your father was a hero. He was an important man and he was willing to make the most profound sacrifice anyone can make. To Lisa, we can only express our gratitude to you on behalf of the people of our city and of our community. We will never forget what your husband did. And Mrs. Saunders, there's no greater pain in this earth than saying goodbye to a child. I know that words can't express the grief that you feel. The people of this city owe you a debt that cannot be repaid, because you raised a fine man. You raised a man of compassion and love. You raised a hero. So we will not forget this man. Tony has left this life, but his spirit will live on in the lives that he touched. It began in the firehouse as the firefighters consoled one another. It's continued in this church and must go on tomorrow. And as Steny Hoyer has said, day after and day after and day after. The book of John tells us that there's no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. No greater love. That's the love that Tony Phillips showed every day. It's the love and commitment that all our men and women in uniform give to us as they put their lives on the line to make our community safe. And so on this day, as we wish this hero peace and we wish him Godspeed, let us say a prayer for Tony, for his children and for his family and for all those who served and for all those who risked their lives for us. On behalf of a great city and on behalf of a great community, thank you, Tony. Thank you. God bless.
You're watching our live coverage now of the funeral of fallen firefighter Anthony Phillips. The funeral services are taking place at the Bethesda New Life Gospel Church on Kenilworth Avenue in Northeast D.C. That was D.C. Mayor Anthony Williams. A short while ago, we heard from D.C. Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton and Congressman Steny Hoyer. News 7's Dale Solly is standing by live now at the church. Dale, it has been an uplifting morning, to say the very least, even though it is a funeral.
It has indeed, Dale, and the humor and the eloquence that we heard just now from Mayor Williams is something really that we've heard all morning long. You mentioned Congressman Steny Hoyer from Maryland. Just a couple of minutes before the mayor got up, Steny Hoyer said something that was really extraordinary, and it was really felt out here outside the church where many firefighters are watching. He said, "Fire can suck the life from a body, but it cannot still the soul." And he too spoke directly to the family that Tony Phillips left behind. Lisa, their two small sons, and his mom as well. We also heard eloquence early, as you said, from D.C. Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton.
We must not forget that 5 were injured, 2 seriously, and that 2 have died. This morning, we give thanks for the young, loving life of Anthony Phillips. We honor him for his courage and his sacrifice. But in remembering firefighter Phillips, we are especially mindful of the men and women of the department he has left behind to carry on his work of confronting danger whenever and wherever it appears. To properly remember firefighter Anthony Phillips is to remember the members of his department and their indispensable mission, the debt we owe him and the debt we surely owe to them. Thank you.
We are back live outside the church now. You're looking at some of the 1,500 plus firefighters who have come, Del, from all over the nation to pay Tony Phillips their last respects. And I'm struck again by something that Steny Hoyer said. He said to the family again, the firefighting family, to the Phillips family, the firefighting family will be here today, they'll be here tomorrow, and they'll be here 10 years from now for you. It is that spirit, it is that feeling, it is that sentiment that permeates the entire area outside the church here today.
Dale, as you watch the proceedings taking place, is there a sense that we are seeing a different side of many of the politicians that all of us have come to know? I mean, in Washington, D.C., sometimes prayer and politics are not mixed, but that was not the case inside the church this morning.
These people, the politicians, as you said, Del, are speaking not from, well, they're speaking from prepared text in many cases, but they are also speaking from the heart. And this is a rare chance, this is a rare occurrence for those of us who cover these people in quite different capacities to hear them in a different capacity, to hear the emotion in Steny Hoyer, the real emotion in Eleanor Holmes Norton, and as you saw and heard just a few moments ago from Mayor Williams as well. This stuff is coming from a piece of paper in many ways, but it is also coming from the heart.
Okay, thanks a lot. News 7's Dale Solly reporting live from Northeast. Mayor Williams received quite a bit of laughter when he indicated that firefighter Phillips was a Cowboys fan, but everybody makes a mistake. News 7's Carol Costello is live right now at Engine Company 10. That is where firefighter Phillips worked and where firefighters are carrying on in his name. Carol.
That's right. Anthony Phillips' death has really caused this community to draw together across the street at Engine House number 10. You can see they've set up a bell. That's because the funeral procession is going to go by here after the funeral wraps up, and they will ring the bell. Anthony Phillips' body will be in a fire engine. They are calling it his last ride. Joining me now is Chairman of the 6A Commission, Daniel Purnell. Come on in here. You knew Tony Phillips. Can you tell me what he was like? We've been hearing he had a great sense of humor. He was a fun-loving guy and a very hard worker.
All those things are correct, and he has been a positive access to this community as far as safety to the seniors and the disabled persons who live in this area, and we really miss him. Just last night, the 6A Commission unanimously voted a resolution to his family to give flowers and our condolences to the grieving family, and we really miss both firefighters who are passed, and it's
well, you know, the community has really given of themselves. They've given money to help the family. They've come by the firehouse here.
I understand a check was just, I forgot how much it was just given, and that's the kind of thing that D.C., when it comes to donation and giving to bereaved families, D.C. has been #1 in the nation. We are very responsive when it comes to needs like that, especially from good officers like the two that just passed.
Absolutely. Washington certainly does have a big heart. Thank you very much. I want to call in now Vaughn Bennett. You're a former firefighter. You used to work here at Engine House number 10. Did you know Tony Phillips?
No, I didn't know Tony Phillips. He came to this firehouse after I did. Certainly this firehouse is one of the busiest in the country, if not the busiest.
Now, I understand that the firefighters that are manning Engine House number 10 today have come from all different parts of the region to allow Tony Phillips' co-works to attend the funeral. You have some concerns about that.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do, because the citizens are being put at more risk by the fact that on these apparatus that are being driven to respond to the citizens' emergencies, whether they be fire or medical, there is no D.C. firefighter. And the fact that there is no D.C. firefighter means that there's individuals who have not been trained on how to get to where they have to in this place in a
Of course, the firefighters tell me that they're all set up and ready to go. And thank you very much for joining us. No. We have to go back now to the studio to Dell. Thank you very much for your comments today. Dell?
Okay, News 7's Carol Costello once again pointing out that these are extreme times, and sometimes extreme times dictate extreme circumstances. We want to point out, by the way, that the funeral services are going on right now at the Bethesda New Life Gospel Church on Kenilworth Avenue in Northeast. We're going to go there live, but as we do, we want to remind you that firefighter Phillips left behind a family. Anthony Jr., it has been pointed out several times, and a 21-month-old daughter, Arzell, as well as his wife, Lisa. You're looking right now at the funeral services that are taking place. I'm going to steal some words as we go back to our regular programming from Steny Hoyer, who spoke just a short while ago. He indicated that firefighter Phillips was not one of the famous, but one of the heroes, and he described him as a domestic defender, and that is whom everybody is paying tribute to this morning. We're going to go back to our regular programming now.
The Lord will give strength.
This has been a special report from News 7. We now rejoin our regularly scheduled programming already in progress.